Unplug that cord right now. I charged across my porch, boots hammering wood, as the woman standing at my outlet spun around with a look that could melt steel. Excuse you? She shrieked, one hand still on the bright orange extension cord snaking from my cabin into the woods. You can't just attack people on community property. Community property? The words exploded out of me. Lady, this is my cabin. You're on my land, stealing my electricity. She folded her arms like a petulant child. I have every right to use this outlet. This is a mountain community. We share resources. No, we don't. Unplug that cord now. Her eyes narrowed. I've been using this electricity for weeks. I need it more than you do. My power got shut off. How heartless are you? I stared at her, unable to believe the entitlement pouring out like a broken faucet. Your power bill isn't my problem. You are trespassing and committing theft. Go ahead, she said, lifting her chin. Call the cops. They won't do anything. I'll just tell them I'm renting this cabin. I pulled out my phone. Her eyes widened for a split second. Then came the shriek, nails on glass, pure fury. Don't you dare film me! I'm calling 911! And she did, right there, on my porch. Screaming into her phone that I was attacking her, threatening her, trying to stop her from accessing community electricity, as if the property she'd trespassed onto somehow belonged to her. That was just the beginning. My name is Michael Brennan. I'm 38 years old, an electrical engineer by trade, and I'd spent years dreaming about owning a place up in the Smokies, a spot where the air stings your lungs in the morning, and it's quiet enough at night you can hear the creek a quarter-mile away. When I finally found it, a 5-acre patch of forest with a small log cabin tucked between two ridges, I didn't hesitate. I signed papers so fast the realtor joked I might sprain my wrist. Those first weekends felt like something out of a magazine. I'd drive up Friday evenings with a cooler full of groceries, tools rattling in the truck, mind ready to switch off from the world. The cabin had been empty for a while, so it needed work. Fresh boards, new paint, insulation, clearing brush. But I loved every second of it. And because I'm an engineer, the first thing I tackled was the electrical system. I hired a licensed electrician, installed a brand new meter, updated the breaker box, replaced half the outlets myself. Everything was perfect, until the electric bills started creeping up. At first, I didn't question it. Maybe I'd left something running. Maybe the new heater pulled more power than I thought. But month after month, the numbers kept rising even though I only stayed there 2 weekends a month. One bill was almost triple the previous month. That's when suspicion hit me. Still, life got busy. I shrugged it off, told myself I'd look into it next trip. But the next time I drove up, the second I stepped out of my truck, I heard my electric meter roaring like a jet engine. The cabin was glowing like Christmas, even though I hadn't turned on a single light. And then I saw it. A bright orange extension cord snaking across my porch, slithering into the trees like some neon parasite. Before I could process it, she stormed out of the woods. Blonde hair in a humidity halo, oversized sunglasses, attitude bigger than the mountain itself. And when I confronted her, when I told her to unplug her illegal power tap, she didn't just argue, she called the cops on ME. I heard the crunch of gravel long before I saw the cruiser. The woman I'd later learn her name was Patricia Whitmore, stood in the middle of my driveway, waving her arms like a stranded air marshal. Over here! Over here! He's the dangerous one! Dangerous. Me. A middle-aged engineer holding nothing but a phone and a bruised sense of patience. The cruiser pulled up, 2 officers inside. The driver stepped out first, tall guy with the calm, neutral expression of someone who'd seen too much stupidity to react anymore. Patricia rushed toward them like she'd been waiting her whole life for this moment. Officers! Arrest him immediately! He tried to assault me! He's stealing electricity! He's harassing community members! Her voice cracked like she was performing for an invisible camera. The taller officer held up a hand. Ma'am, slow down. One at a time. What exactly happened? She jabbed a finger at me. He attacked me because I was using the community outlet. He screamed at me. He thinks he owns this mountain. The officer turned to me. I simply lifted my hand and pointed at the bright orange extension cord stretching across my porch like a fluorescent snake. If the officers followed it with their eyes, they'd see it trailing into the woods, disappearing toward her property downhill. I spoke calmly. Officers, I own this cabin. I have the deed, the power account, everything. I found this woman trespassing and stealing electricity from that outlet. I pointed again. All breakers inside were off. The meter was still spinning. She plugged that in while I was away. That's a lie! Patricia screeched. He rents from me. This is my community. This is our shared power. The younger officer blinked. Shared power? Yes, she barked. Mountain community rules. Now, there is no HOA here, no association, no bylaws, nothing, except the general rule: respect property lines or face consequences. The tall officer seemed to know it. He rubbed the bridge of his nose like he wasn't paid enough for this. Ma'am, he said, do you have any proof you rent this cabin to him? Any contract? Patricia froze. Her pupils flicked sideways, classic sign of someone realizing they'd walked into a wall of their own lies. Well, I don't have it on me. It's at home. Safe. Very official. Okay, the officer said, but right now we need something to confirm what you're saying. She hesitated. Then she inhaled deeply, lifted her chin, and said, I don't need to prove anything. He's the problem. I decided it was time to accelerate things. Officer, I said, handing over my folder. Here's the deed, the utility bill in my name, photos of the electric meter from this morning, and logs of the spikes in energy when I wasn't here. The officer accepted the papers, flipping through while Patricia hovered close behind. Trying to peek and simultaneously acting offended, he was looking at them. When he got to the meter photographs, his eyebrows lifted. These were taken at what time? 6:12 a.m., I said. All breakers were off, no appliances running. So what was drawing power? I nodded toward the cord. He followed its path with his eyes, then walked over and bent down. His gloved fingers lifted it from the dirt. He gave me that look cops give when they realize the person yelling loudest is the guilty one. Ma'am, he called, where does this cord lead? It's none of your business, she snapped, perhaps the single worst answer she could have picked. The younger officer stepped up. Actually, it is. If this cord is pulling power without permission, that's theft. Patricia's face turned a shade of tomato red. It's temporary. My power was turned off because of a mistake. The company is fixing it next week. He doesn't even live here full time. He won't miss a little electricity. The tall officer exhaled. Ma'am, that's not how the law works. I could have hugged him. Let's follow the cord, the younger officer said. Patricia immediately threw herself in front of them like a frantic soccer goalie. No, you can't go down there. That's my private property. The tall officer looked her dead in the eye. If the cord is connected to stolen electricity, we have cause to inspect it. And then the three of us, me and two officers, began walking down the slope, following the orange cord. Patricia followed behind, shouting threats, half-truths, insults, dramatic pleas to the universe. The deeper we went, the uglier the trail became. Broken branches, footprints, tire ruts from a wheelbarrow. At the bottom of the hill, tucked behind overgrown rhododendrons, was her house. Calling it a house was generous. It looked like someone took a mobile home, wrapped it in aluminum siding, and prayed it wouldn't fall apart. And there it was. The orange cord ran straight into her living room window. Inside, visible from the yard, a rattling mini fridge, a space heater glowing red, 2 lamps, a TV, a microwave, and, God help me, an ancient AC unit duct taped to the wall. The younger officer whistled long and low. Well, that's a lot. The tall officer turned to Patricia, who now looked like she might faint or combust. Ma'am, is there any reason you didn't mention you had multiple appliances running on a cord connected to someone else's property? I needed it, she shouted. It's cold and my food will spoil, and the TV, I need it for safety. Noise scares away bears. There are no bears on this side of the ridge, I said. Shut up, she screamed at me, which only made her look worse. The tall officer radioed something in, then photographed everything. Patricia kept pacing, ranting about injustice and corrupt utility companies and how neighbors are supposed to help each other, while simultaneously telling them she'd never met me before today. The contradiction didn't help her. After the officers finished documenting, they led her back up the hill. She kept insisting she'd done nothing wrong. Then the officers turned to me. Sir, the tall one said, we're going to recommend charges for trespassing, utility theft, and filing a false report. We'll need a formal statement later. Patricia let out a shriek, usually reserved for horror movies. You can't do this to me! I'm the victim! This is my mountain community! No, ma'am, the officer replied. This is his property, and you've got a lot to answer for. As she protested, struggling, sputtering, the younger officer gently cuffed her hands behind her back. That's when I finally got a clear look at her. And despite everything, I had to admit Patricia Whitmore knew how to dress for war. That crimson-red blazer, perfectly tailored, fitted, draped casually off her shoulders like armor she'd worn into 100 battles. Underneath, a black silk V-neck blouse that walked the line between professional and provocative. The matching pencil skirt had a subtle slit. Red patent leather heels clicked against gravel even as she was being arrested. Her chestnut brown hair fell in waves to her shoulders, somehow still styled despite the chaos. And her lips, glossy red matching her blazer, were still moving, still shrieking threats. She looked like she was heading to a power lunch, not a police cruiser. They guided her toward the car. She screamed the whole way. Something about lawyers, something about the mayor, something about suing me for emotional distress. But the moment the cruiser door closed and locks clicked, the mountain went quiet again, peaceful, just the way I'd intended. They drove her off, her shrieks fading into the distance like unhinged wildlife calls echoing through trees. You'd think the story would end there. But life in the mountains has a funny way of stretching things out. The officers stayed behind for a few minutes, taking additional photos and asking follow-up questions. The tall one, Officer Daniels, pulled out a notebook. Sir, walk me through your timeline one more time. So I did. From the strange bills to the spinning meter. From killing the breakers to planning the stakeout, all the way to catching Patricia with the cord in hand. Daniels wrote everything down, nodding occasionally. Just so we're clear, he said, you never gave her permission to be on your property or use your utilities? I wouldn't let a cousin borrow electricity, I said, let alone a stranger with a cord longer than most driveways. The younger officer Cole snorted a laugh, but quickly pretended he hadn't. Daniels closed his notebook. All right, we'll file the initial report. The detective unit will follow up for formal statements. From what we saw, this is pretty cut and dry. He hesitated. She may try to spin more stories. People like her tend to double down before they give in. Trust me, I said. I already figured that out. They got into their cruiser and began reversing down the driveway. I watched the taillights fade until the mountain swallowed the sound completely. Then, for the first time that day, I exhaled. Silence. Real silence. I walked back toward the cabin, stepping over the imprint of Patricia's red heels in the dirt. That damn orange cord still lay across the porch like shed snakeskin. I followed it back to the outlet and crouched beside it. Scratches all around the plastic plate, tiny marks from repeated plugging and unplugging. She hadn't used it once or twice. She'd used it often. I rubbed my thumb across the surface, trying to guess how many weeks she'd been leeching off me. My bill history told one story, but my gut told me something bigger was happening. What if she wasn't stealing just from me? What if she'd been stealing from other cabins too? The idea settled like a splinter. Small, but impossible to ignore. I stood and scanned the tree line. From this angle, you could see the slope leading toward other properties. If she dragged that cord down one path, maybe she dragged others from different homes. Maybe this wasn't her first rodeo. I wanted answers, but before hunting for more proof, I needed to secure my own place. I grabbed wire cutters and headed back out. The satisfying snip of the cord separating echoed across the porch. I tossed Patricia's end into the woods, let her dig for it. Then I unscrewed the exterior outlet cover and replaced it with a locking outdoor box requiring a key to open. Overkill? Probably. But I'd never had to protect my home from a full-grown woman acting like electricity belonged to the public domain. After I finished, I went inside and double-checked every breaker, appliance, and plug. Everything was off except the fridge and emergency lights. The meter outside slowed to a gentle crawl, finally reflecting normal use. For the first time since arriving, I felt my shoulders loosen. I made coffee, sat on the porch, tried to relax. But my brain wouldn't let go of the lingering question. Was Patricia acting alone? Or was I just the first one smart enough to catch her? I didn't have to wait long to find out. An hour later, I heard soft steps from the dirt road. An older man, maybe 70s, walked with a wooden cane, weathered face, gray beard. Mountain-worn jacket. "Morning," he said with a polite nod. "Morning." He paused at the edge of the porch. "Saw the police earlier. Everything all right?" I chuckled bitterly. "Depends what you call all right." He tapped his cane lightly. "Heard rumors Patricia was up to something. She's been poking around a lot of cabins lately." My eyebrows shot up. "You're kidding." "Wish I was," he said, lowering himself onto the step. Couple folks down the hill mentioned lights flickering at odd hours. One neighbor found footprints behind his garage. Another swore his outdoor outlet had been tampered with. My stomach tightened. So it was more than just me. The man leaned in slightly. "She's always been entitled. Acts like she's queen of the ridge. Claims she's head of some mountain committee that only exists in her imagination." I sighed. "Figures. What'd she do to you?" she asked. So I told him the whole story. When I got to the part where she called the cops on me, he let out a long whistle. "Well, son," he said, "looks like she finally messed with someone who knows what they're doing." Most folks up here don't know much about electricity. Hard to prove theft without knowing how the system works. Lucky me. Luck? He shook his head. "Sounds more like good sense. The mountain needs more folks like you." His words warmed me more than the coffee. "You should know," he said carefully, "Patricia's been in trouble before. Not officially, but she's crossed lines more than once. People were too polite or too tired to fight her." "Not anymore," I said. "I'm not letting this slide." He nodded approvingly. "Good. Keep your eyes open. She'll fight this tooth and nail before she admits fault." I figured as much. He stood slowly, brushing pine needles off his jacket. "If you need anything, come by my place down the hill. Name's Randall." "Thanks, Randall. Seriously." He tipped his head. "Take care now. And watch your outlets." With that, he walked back down the dirt path and disappeared among the trees. I sat there, letting his words settle. This wasn't just about a cord or a few dollars. It was about someone who carried entitlement like a weapon. Someone who believed rules didn't apply to her. Someone who needed to be stopped. Patricia had picked the wrong mountain, the wrong cabin, and the wrong engineer to mess with. But one thing was certain. This wasn't over. Not even close. 3 days later, my phone rang. Detective Harris from the sheriff's office. "Mr. Brennan, we've reviewed the initial report. We'd like to schedule a formal interview. Tonight or tomorrow morning?" "Tonight works." He gave me a time and directions to the substation. That evening, I drove to town and met Detective Harris. Tall, broad shoulders, gray in his beard, the look of a man who preferred facts over drama. He led me to a small room. Desk, 2 chairs, ancient coffee maker. "Let's start from the beginning," he said. I walked him through everything, handing over my folder with photos, meter logs, timestamps. He inspected it all closely. "This is thorough, very thorough. I'm an engineer. Documentation is what I do." He tapped the table thoughtfully. "We've had complaints the past few months. Flickering lights. breaker trips, odd meter spikes. We chalked it up to old wiring and storms. He narrowed his eyes. But if what you're saying is right, she's been leeching off multiple cabins. I think so. He exhaled slowly. This is worse than I thought. We spent another half hour refining my statement. When done, he stood and shook my hand. Thank you, Mr. Brennan. We'll be moving forward with charges. But between you and me, brace yourself. People like her don't go down quietly. I almost laughed. You don't say, he cracked a thin smile. We'll keep you updated. I left the station feeling like we'd turned a corner, but just as I pulled into the grocery store parking lot, my phone buzzed, a voicemail from an unknown number. I played it, and my blood pressure jumped. This isn't over. Patricia screamed through the speaker. Her voice cracked, furious, borderline feral. You think you can get me arrested? I'll sue you. I'll take your cabin. You mess with the wrong woman. Just wait. The message ended with a slam. I listened twice just to be sure. She was out already. Someone had bailed her out fast. Fantastic, I muttered. I sat in my truck for a long moment, gripping the steering wheel. She was coming back. Of course she was. But this time, she wasn't walking onto my property with a cord. She'd come with rage, lies, and the full fire of someone publicly embarrassed. The next few days were tense. Every sound made me turn. Every shadow in the trees made my pulse jump. I installed more security cameras, motion sensor lights, reinforced locks. The cabin was starting to look like a fortress, which wasn't what I'd wanted when I bought this place. I'd wanted peace, simplicity, escape. Instead, I got paranoia and hypervigilance. On the fourth day, Randall stopped by with news. Talked to some folks down the ridge, he said, settling onto my porch. Patricia's been busy, going door to door, telling everyone you're the problem. Says you attacked her, that you're trying to drive her off the mountain. I rubbed my face. Of course she is. But here's the thing, Randall continued. Most people aren't buying it. Word's gotten around about what she was really doing. The electricity theft, the lies to police. People are talking. That's something, I guess. More than something. Public opinion matters up here. She's losing her grip on the community narrative. I wanted to feel relief, but all I felt was exhaustion. There's more, Randall said, his tone shifting. Her brother's back, Joey. He's been seen around your access road, just sitting there in his truck, watching. My stomach tightened. Great. I'm not trying to scare you, just want you aware. Joey's not as smart as Patricia, but he's more physical. More impulsive. Noted. That night, I didn't sleep well. Every creak of the cabin settling made me sit up. Every gust of wind through the pines sounded like footsteps. At 2:17 a.m., my motion sensor camera triggered. I grabbed my phone and pulled up the feed. A figure stood at the edge of my property, broad shoulders, hood pulled up, just standing there, watching. For 3 full minutes, he didn't move. Then he turned and walked back into the woods. I saved the footage and texted it to Detective Harris immediately. His response came at 6 a.m. That's Joey, filing harassment charges. Keep cameras running. The next weekend, I decided to walk the property boundaries, check fences, make sure everything was secure. Halfway through my circuit, I found something that made my blood run cold. Another extension cord, blue this time, hidden under brush, leading from the edge of my property toward a different neighbor's cabin. Patricia hadn't just been stealing from me. She'd been running multiple taps, a whole network. I followed the blue cord carefully, taking photos every few feet. It led to the cabin belonging to an elderly couple, the Hendersons, who only visited once a month. They probably had no idea their power was being siphoned. I knocked on their door, no answer. They weren't there. I called Detective Harris immediately. Found another cord, blue one, leading to the Henderson property. Patricia's network is bigger than we thought. Don't touch anything, he said. I'm sending a team. Within 2 hours, 3 sheriff's vehicles pulled up. They documented everything, followed cords, found 4 more properties being tapped. One officer shook his head in disbelief. This is organized theft. She's been running this operation for at least 2 years. Can you prove it? With this much physical evidence? Absolutely. As they worked, a car pulled up. A woman I didn't recognize stepped out, carrying a clipboard. Mr. Brennan? I'm Linda Chen. I represent 3 other cabin owners on this ridge. We've all been experiencing the same issues: high bills, power fluctuations. We heard about your case. Can we talk? Of course. She introduced me to the others who'd gathered: Tom and Susan Rodriguez, James Mitchell, and the Hendersons who'd just arrived after I'd called them. All of them had been victims. None of them had realized it until now. We want to file a joint complaint, Linda said. Strengthen the case against her. I'll help however I can. As the group compared notes, a pattern emerged. Patricia had been targeting part-time residents, people who weren't around often enough to notice the theft immediately. She'd been careful, methodical, rotating which cabins she tapped to avoid raising suspicion. But she'd gotten greedy, started tapping too many at once, started getting sloppy, and that's when I'd caught her. She told me she was the community power coordinator, Tom said, laughing bitterly. Said it was normal for mountain properties to share electricity during emergencies. I actually believed her at first. She showed me fake paperwork, Susan added. Said the HOA required it, except there is no HOA here. James shook his head. She had me convinced I was the one with the electrical problem. Charged me $500 to inspect my system. Found nothing wrong, of course. The scope of Patricia's operation was staggering. Theft, fraud, extortion. Detective Harris listened to all of it, taking notes. This changes things, he said. This isn't just trespassing and utility theft anymore. This is racketeering. Organized criminal activity. We're talking federal charges. Linda smiled. Good. As everyone left, I felt something shift inside me. I wasn't alone in this anymore. Patricia had made enemies across the entire ridge, and now they were all united against her. 2 days later, Patricia made her next move. A process server showed up at my cabin with a lawsuit. Patricia Whitmore versus Michael Brennan. She was suing me for defamation, harassment, and malicious prosecution, claiming I'd falsely accused her, destroyed her reputation, caused her emotional distress. She wanted $500,000 in damages. I called my lawyer, Rebecca Walsh, someone Randall had recommended. Rebecca read through the complaint and laughed. Actually laughed. Michael, this is the worst written lawsuit I've seen in 10 years. She's representing herself. It's full of legal errors. And she's suing you while facing criminal charges for the exact crimes you reported. So I'm not in trouble? Not even a little. In fact, this lawsuit is probably going to make her criminal case worse. She's essentially admitting she was on your property. She's just claiming she had permission, which contradicts everything she told police. Can we countersue? Absolutely. For frivolous litigation, abuse of process, and continued harassment, we'll bury her in legal fees. I felt relief wash over me. Do it. With pleasure. But that night, alone in my cabin, the relief faded. This was escalating. Fast. Patricia wasn't backing down. She was doubling down. And I had a sinking feeling things were about to get much, much worse. I sat on my porch, staring into the dark woods, wondering what she'd do next. The answer came 3 days later. But then everything got worse. Not for Patricia. For me. 2 weeks after her arrest, I drove up to the cabin for a quiet weekend. The moment I pulled into my driveway, I knew something was wrong. My front window was shattered. Glass everywhere. The door hung open, lock broken. Inside was chaos. Furniture overturned. Drawers pulled out. My tools scattered across the floor. But nothing was stolen. Nothing taken. Just destroyed. Vandalized. A message. On the wall, spray painted in red. Leave. My hands shook as I pulled out my phone and called 911. While waiting for the police, I walked the perimeter. Fresh tire tracks, boot prints, multiple people had been here. and then I found it. A piece of crimson fabric caught on a nail near the broken window. Expensive material, tailored, the same shade as Patricia's blazer. She'd been here, or sent someone who had. When Officer Daniels arrived, he took one look at the damage and his jaw clenched. "This is escalation," he said. "This is her retaliating. Can you prove it?" "We'll try." He photographed everything, collected the fabric, dusted for prints, but I could see it in his eyes. Without direct evidence, this was just vandalism, hard to prosecute. That night, I sat in my destroyed cabin, surrounded by broken glass and overturned furniture. For the first time since this started, I felt something I hadn't felt before. Doubt. Maybe I should just sell, walk away, let Patricia win. The mountain wasn't peaceful anymore. It was a war zone, and I was exhausted. I stared at the red spray paint on my wall. Leave. Maybe she was right. Maybe this wasn't worth it. My phone buzzed. Text from Randall. Heard what happened. Coming up. Don't give up. 20 minutes later, he was there, helping me clean, boarding up the window, sitting with me in silence. "You thinking about quitting?" he finally asked. I nodded. "Yeah, don't." "Why not? This is insane. She's destroyed my cabin. She's stalking me. She's desperate," Randall interrupted. "And desperate people make mistakes, big ones." He leaned forward. "You give up now. She wins. She learns that terror works. And she'll do this to the next person. And the next. You want that on your conscience?" I didn't answer. "You're close, Michael. Closer than you think. Don't quit now." I looked at him. At this old mountain man who barely knew me but had shown up anyway. What do I do? "You keep documenting. You keep fighting. And you trust that the system works. Eventually." That night, lying in my sleeping bag in the half-destroyed cabin, I made a decision. I wasn't leaving. Patricia Whitmore had started this war, but I was going to finish it. 3 days later, Detective Harris called with news that changed everything. "Mr. Brennan, we got a break. Big one." I sat up straighter. "What?" "Patricia's been running a fraud operation across 3 counties. We found evidence she'd been stealing electricity from 17 different properties. And she's been reselling power to off-grid squatters using generators and extension cords." I blinked. "What?" "She's been charging people cash for mountain community electricity, making thousands a month. Your cabin was just one node in a network. She'd tap your power, run it to her place, then redistribute it to people living in campers and sheds, charging them $200 a month for access." "Holy shit! We're filing federal charges, wire fraud, organized theft, racketeering. She's looking at 5 to 10 years minimum." Relief flooded through me. "And the vandalism? We matched the fabric you found to her blazer." Got her on security footage from a neighbor's camera, and Joey confessed. Said she ordered him to teach you a lesson. He's cooperating now in exchange for reduced charges. "So it's over?" "The criminal part is just starting. But yeah, you won. She's done." But it wasn't over. Not yet. Patricia's arrest made regional news. Mountain woman charged in multi-county electricity theft ring. The story spread fast. Local papers, regional TV, even a true crime podcast picked it up. Suddenly, my quiet mountain cabin was the center of a media circus. Reporters called, bloggers emailed. Someone even showed up at my driveway with a camera crew. I declined all interviews. Let the evidence speak for itself. But Patricia? She couldn't resist. From jail, she called a reporter and gave a rambling interview claiming she was the real victim, that I'd entrapped her, that the charges were mountain politics, that she was just helping neighbors. The reporter published it. Public reaction was swift and brutal. Comment sections filled with people mocking her, pointing out the absurdity of her claims, sharing their own HOA horror stories. Patricia Whitmore became a cautionary tale. A meme. Mountain Karen trending on social media. Her crimson blazer, the one she'd worn like armor, became a symbol of entitled delusion. People photoshopped it onto other Karens. Made jokes about power theft chic. It was brutal, humiliating, exactly what she deserved. 2 months later, the preliminary hearing happened. I drove to the courthouse, a modest brick building in the county seat. The courtroom was packed. Other victims, reporters, curious locals. And there, at the defense table, sat Patricia. No crimson blazer this time. Orange jumpsuit, hair flat, no makeup, no glossy red lips. She looked small, diminished. Nothing like the woman who'd screamed at me on my own porch. The prosecutor was a sharp woman named Jennifer Mills. Mid-40s, no nonsense, the kind of lawyer who'd built a career putting away white-collar criminals. She laid out the case methodically. 17 victims, 24 separate incidents of theft, evidence of fraud, racketeering, organized criminal activity, photos of extension cords, meter readings, financial records showing cash payments, testimony from Joey, who described how Patricia had recruited him, how she'd mapped out which cabins to target, how she'd falsified documents claiming to be a community power coordinator. The defense attorney, a young public defender who looked overwhelmed, tried to argue Patricia had mental health issues, that she didn't understand what she was doing was wrong. Judge Morrison shut that down immediately. Miss Whitmore ran an organized criminal operation for 2 years. She kept detailed records. She rotated targets to avoid detection. She falsified documents and intimidated witnesses. This was not confusion. This was calculated theft. Patricia's face went red. She tried to stand, to speak, but her attorney pulled her back down. The judge set a trial date for 6 months out. As we filed out of the courtroom, Patricia's eyes found mine across the room. That same look, hatred mixed with disbelief that she'd actually lost. But this time, I didn't look away. I held her gaze until she broke first, until she looked down, defeated. The trial took 3 weeks. I testified on day 4, walked the jury through everything: the spinning meter, the orange cord, the confrontation, the arrest. The defense tried to paint me as vindictive, as someone with a grudge. But the evidence was overwhelming. 17 other victims testified, each with the same story: Patricia's lies. Her fake authority, her threats. The Hendersons testified about losing $3,000 over 2 years. Tom Rodriguez about the fake inspection she'd charged him for. Linda Chen about the community fees Patricia had collected under false pretenses. By the end of week 2, even Patricia's attorney looked defeated. The closing arguments were brief. The prosecutor: "This is theft, plain and simple, dressed up in folksy language about mountain communities and neighborly sharing. But underneath the excuses, it's just stealing." And the defendant knew exactly what she was doing. The defense: "My client made mistakes, but she was struggling. Her power was cut off. She was desperate. She didn't understand the severity. She ran an organized criminal network." The prosecutor interrupted. "For 2 years. She recruited accomplices. She kept financial records. She intimidated witnesses and destroyed evidence. This wasn't desperation. This was greed." The jury deliberated for 6 hours. When they came back, the verdict was unanimous: guilty, on all counts. Patricia's face crumpled. Her attorney put a hand on her shoulder, but she shook it off. The judge scheduled sentencing for 2 weeks later. When sentencing day came, the courtroom was packed again. Judge Morrison read through the charges, the evidence, the impact statements from victims. Then he looked directly at Patricia. "Miss Whitmore, you violated the trust of your community. You exploited people's goodwill. You lied to law enforcement. You intimidated witnesses. You destroyed property in retaliation." He paused. "You are sentenced to 8 years in federal prison, 3 years supervised release, $127,000 in restitution to victims, and permanent prohibition from holding any position of authority in homeowner associations or community organizations." 8 years. Patricia let out a sound half sob, half scream. Guards escorted her out. Still in that orange jumpsuit, still diminished, still defeated, I walked out of that courthouse into bright sunshine. Randall was waiting on the steps. "It's over," he said. "Yeah, it's over." We drove back to the mountain together, quiet, reflective, That evening, I sat on my rebuilt porch with coffee, watching sunset paint the valley gold and crimson. The cabin was restored. The meter spun gently, reflecting only my power use. New locks, new cameras, new peace. Down the ridge, I could see lights from other cabins coming on as evening fell. The Hendersons, the Rodriguez family, Linda Chen's place. All of them safe now, all of them protected, because someone had stood up, had documented, had fought back. A year later, I received a letter from Patricia. In prison. I almost threw it away. But curiosity won. Inside, 3 pages of rambling justification. How she'd been misunderstood, how the system had failed her, how I'd overreacted. No apology, no accountability, no recognition of what she'd actually done. Just more excuses, more blame shifting, more delusion. I read it once, then burned it in my fireplace. Some people never learn. Some people never accept responsibility. Some people go to their graves believing they were the victim. Patricia Whitmore was one of those people. But she was also in prison, where she belonged. And I was here, in my cabin, in my mountain, in my peace. That crimson blazer, the one she'd worn like armor into battle, was now evidence in a federal case file. A symbol of entitlement, of fraud, of consequences. 2 years after the trial, I was working in my garden when a car pulled up. A woman stepped out, mid-20s, nervous smile. "Mr. Brennan? I'm Sarah Whitmore, Patricia's daughter." I straightened slowly. "Okay. I just wanted to say, I'm sorry. For everything my mother did. I didn't know about any of it until the trial. I was away at college. When I found out, she trailed off. You're not responsible for her choices," I said. "I know, but I wanted you to know not everyone in my family is like her, and I'm grateful you stopped her before she hurt more people." We talked for 20 minutes. She was studying social work, wanted to help people, not exploit them. Before she left, she said something that stuck with me. "My mother taught me what not to be." I watched her drive away, feeling something unexpected. Hope that even from Patricia's chaos and entitlement, something good could grow. That the next generation could learn, could be better, could choose differently. 3 years after the trial, I still live in my cabin, still love my mountain, still find peace in the pines. The community is stronger now, more united, more aware. We have actual neighborhood meetings, voluntary, not mandatory, where people share information, help each other, respect boundaries, the way mountain communities are supposed to work. No queens. No dictators, no entitlement, just neighbors, helping neighbors, as it should be. I never saw Patricia again after sentencing, but I heard she tried to start a prisoners' rights group in federal prison, tried to organize complaints against guards, tried to claim authority over other inmates. It didn't go well. Turns out, entitlement doesn't survive long in places where everyone actually faces consequences. Sometimes I think about that day, the orange cord, the shrieking, the arrest, how close I came to just ignoring it, to letting it slide, to avoiding confrontation. And I'm grateful I didn't. Because standing up to bullies, whether they wear crimson blazers or orange jumpsuits, isn't just about protecting yourself. It's about protecting everyone who comes after you. That's worth fighting for. Even when it costs you everything, even when it breaks your cabin, and your peace, and your quiet mountain life. Because in the end, Patricia Whitmore didn't just lose her freedom. She lost her power, her authority, her ability to hurt people. And that, more than any prison sentence, is real justice. The kind that lasts, the kind that matters, the kind worth fighting for.